Hi, everybody. There we go. I have a kind of a question from Betty Toslin in England. It's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting way that she's presented the question. And it's not an easy thing to understand. Many of you out there are literally clairvoyant and also at the same time have all kinds of things that you can do that are just a little bit different than the norm. And she's addressing one of the things that has occurred in her life and asking a pretty honest question. And the answer is difficult to allow oneself to be okay with. So in the answer that I'm going to give, I'm going to be as honest as I can with Betty's question, and it's going to bring up other questions in you if you are clairvoyant or any of the clairs or something beyond that. And here it is. Mm-hmm. Sorry?
Chocolate eclair?
Oh, yeah. Marlene's trying to be funny. Chocolate eclair, she says. I'll skip to... Okay. It's in the form of a semi-complaint, but at the same time, something different, really, really strongly added. She's answering her question at the same time. And Betty, I'm not sure if you noticed that. I feel I don't move forward at all except for energies constantly around me. Would you remind yourself that she said that? The energy is constantly around her, in, through, and around her. She has lost all her beautiful colors that she saw in her mind, lost her clairvoyance, and she doesn't think she's gained very much by it. Because, well, never mind the because, Betty. And she's had quite a few things happening in her sleep. Very interesting. And meditations, sleep and meditations. Some in the past. One is where I saw Elizabeth I of England, and I was in her palace speaking with her, and we were in her yew gardens. Now, I remembered what dreams are like. I'm trying to tell you something and trying to give you a landscape to try and understand them. And I was around 10 years old. In other words, I'm still a young being. And I can't remember everything she said, but when she put her hands on my shoulders and said, "Child, be of stout heart. I know this means," and Betty says, "I know this means have courage, be strong." And in that first one, let's do the first one. You'll see the repetition. Usually, royalty of that kind is related to the crown center because crowns are involved. The dilemma with all of this is she put her hands on her shoulders, and the throat center is pivotal in relationship to a functioning brow center and crown. It pulls energy up from the lower systems, and Hindus have known this, and the Buddhists have known this for an awfully long period of time. That's why when you're doing your yoga, you have these two fingers come together. This is the forefinger or the throat center, and the root gonad structure coming up to the throat. And to come up through the throat, it must pass through the solar plexus, which is a pivotal engaging chakra that is powerful and a great balancer, a central core structure for the existence of humanity on these planes. Very important. And also, very much involved with a lot of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and also leaving the body. Solar plexus, very vital in this. But it was Queen Elizabeth that engages with her. Her crown center engages with her and gives her help. In other words, energy coming from the crown center, coming into and through the throat center, and will move into the downward into the belly and the chest. And if it goes to the solar plexus, it will help the root and the gonad center. They're talking about the personalized will being about 10 years old, not meaning literally, but meaning youthful, because our youthful wills dictate what is true and false in these worlds. Because in these worlds, we're often extremely coarse in our engagement with what is going on around us and in us, or elevated in what's going around us and in us relative to what we believe to be true or false. So this is really important. This is a valuable thing to remember. I'm sorry for the noise if that made a noise, but what I'm saying is more important than noise. Your issue here is the recognition of energy coming in for the purpose to broaden out a relationship with you as a being beyond the coarser levels. And in the coarser levels, we extend our senses, and that is often called spiritual. That is only an extension of our capacities, our senses, our abilities to see beyond what is initially normal for us, and that is a relationship with our personalities. Clairvoyance often is related to personality orientations, how you engage with another personally, how you judge other people, how right you are, how you engage, what you believe they're like, and not even sometimes you're just extra sensing, you have an extra sensing of how their internal personalities are. That is still in the coarser levels. It's just the way it works. However, it is not always thought to be there. It's often thought to be a very spiritual level. It is a part of a movement in a cycle, and there are many larger cycles, and there is nothing negative with those that are beyond what our particular conscious awareness is involved with, but they are still cycles, and there are cycles beyond that. It's really hard for us to allow that to be valuable because it sounds like we're putting down being clairvoyant and clair whatever. It's not putting anything down. Our personality, identity structure, our personality, the identity structure, is constructed there ultimately for the purpose of noticing, being able to be consciously aware through the eyes of a higher state. Currently, we're still aware in relationship to the lower states. We engage with, we perceive, we understand, we decide what is valid, what is not valid. Okay? All right. Second part of her engagement was that she saw Henry VIII in her dream. This is wonderful. Implying, again, crown center engagement, because a king, of course, of England, but a king engaged with the crown, always a crown and the king. These are just images, a regalness, a state relative to where you were before. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to find where I was. After that, I was in a meditation meeting, and Henry VIII was standing behind me with his hands on my shoulders. Hands on the shoulders again. Once again, very important. Relates directly to the neck area, throat area, the brow area, the crown area, and an aspect of the heart center. That, when it comes on, moves into the lower systems to broaden it out so you can learn to go beyond how the personality has been constructed from the lower system. Without the lower system, we could not have a personality. If you didn't have one, you would be standing like an automaton, unable to function. Okay, just a second. All right, with a hand on my shoulder, giving me healing, but I was told he was not happy with me for some reason. Wow. Recently, I was dreaming. Oh, okay, let's do that. Not happy with me for some reason. Your personality structure is involved with your dreams. Unconscious is still a part of the personality structure. You have reflexes and reactions in the personality that come out of the unconscious well to engage with protecting you in an engaging form. If you already think you've lost something, your clairvoyance, your ability to do extra special stuff, automatically what will occur is you will be telling you that you don't live up to what you should be living up to. If you see your dreams as metaphor, then you'll begin to understand that that is a personality aspect that is talking to you. You felt that you were really able before, and now you believe you're less able than what you were before. Misunderstanding. No? Oh, yeah. Is it allowed to misunderstand? Absolutely. We're trying to make sense of stuff. Absolutely real. And we do not always make sense of stuff, even if we tell ourselves a story that relates to seemingly making sense of things. Higher states don't put down your relationship with growth, no matter what it is. Higher states tend to help you understand beyond what you could understand before. That's how higher states operate. They're an act of loving, trying to be helpful as opposed to judging. And others still think higher states judge. But instead of judging, they try to help you to go beyond how you normally think things through. This is very difficult for us to engage with because we're usually comforted by the zones we live in. Not negative at all. It's just where we are. So far, these are two beautiful dreams. Engaging with, trying to show us how the personality is going beyond the images that have been extended, clairvoyance, whatever, into another state, because you are conscious of energy flowing through you all the time. That's important. So you are conscious of the fact that there is spiritual energy operating through you, period. Others will give their eye teeth for that one. They trade their eye teeth for being important because they're able to engage with other states of the personality's subtleties. Not negative at all, part of a cycle, remember? Okay, here we go. Then you were in your car. I was dreaming I was in my car, driving through heavy rain, heavy emotional engagement, reactions, and personality orientations. Quite normal, heavy. We are in a coarser state. And my windscreen wipers, when they came on, wouldn't work properly. In other words, you couldn't see through the emotional states very well, or what you assessed as being real very well, through the personalities' relative wisdom, because it was a judgment. It was negating you. You were negating you. It's okay. I don't think there's anybody that's ever, who's listening now, ever didn't negate themselves. If they didn't, they're either on another plane or they're elevating their own disposition as being more important than everybody else. I mean, is that possible? Yeah, could be. But also, you might be in another state. And being okay with you, you've already learned that it's okay to be with others in the cycles where they are. And you begin to understand with compassion where they are and how difficult it is for them to be anywhere else. And going through what appears to be a blank spot, but except that you can feel Niagara Falls flowing through you, the energy going through you, and you know that that's energy. Wow. You're in a cycle that's of movement that relates to beginning to be aware of something beyond what you could be aware before. Because even with your clairvoyance, you can be aware of energy going through those centers, through those zephyrods, through the big form that you are, as an engaging being of consciousness. All of us are beings of consciousness. We have the capacity slowly to be aware of the fact that there is a universal flow operating through us that we have used from our birth, time of our birth, to construct a form by copying, using energy to copy and be like those who were training us. And also make up our mind about what we want to do and how we would like to do it, whether it's grumbling or being happy or whatever it may be. And the wonderful thing is using that energy, it's so loving. It will let you do anything you want to do with it. But also it will give you insights about what you're doing. And it's showing you insights related to the crown center coming on. It's amazingly wonderful. I couldn't see ahead of me. I can't see what's going on. I wasn't alone. You're not alone. But no idea was with me. No idea who was with me. No idea what those energies are really about. And you're reluctant to think that they might be higher states. Maybe not. They could be higher states. But remember one thing. Each and every individual has the same flow operating through them relative to them. Not relative to you, relative to them. And they are engaging with life with that flow. And ultimately will be engaged in a deeper way, relating to knowing that there is such a thing as a universal flow, quite consciously. And through that screen of awareness, they'll be able to perceive deep into the soul structure, knowing full well where an individual is coming from and understanding the dilemmas that they're facing, because you are facing some of those same dilemmas. You are hopeful that you are growing, and will my clairvoyance ever come back? It may, but it will not be the same. It'll be much deeper than it was before. You may notice deep down in your mind an engagement with another that has nothing to do with the personality whatsoever. It will be used just as a seer. You will see things not related to the personality, but related to the individual's internal structure, soul structure, the energy moving through for quite a different purpose. Purpose of being of help to others, as opposed to being the personality being important because they can do these things.
It's creating a scratching.
The important thing about a relationship that we have with these energies is that we don't always realize that these energies shift intensities, and they do. You come into these planes and you attempt to understand intensities that are related to your personality. But for some, even they can even see frequencies, and that they may even lose because don't become as relevant as they were initially. Most of, well, a lot of perceptions are there to help the individual become less afraid of things occurring as they grow. You'll have various things occurring, and then they'll be taken away. Taken away not because you did anything wrong, just because, okay, now you're on to something else. Then you have some reactions. Well, you're reacting about this or that, and that's normal. And then you soften down with that, and suddenly something different occurs, something that relates to you being able to handle another level or impact of energy based on the system that you have, the personality, perhaps, or your emotional disposition, or physically, uh, how you handle a lot more frequency occurring than was occurring before. These things are fairly consistent over time. And in our world, we're more prone to just be looking at personality reflex, things that are quite different. When these things happen like that, it means that you're being trained, literally. If you become a clairvoyant, for example, you're being trained to pull back from your personality's sense of importance, because you're able to notice these things. And then over time, it's taken away from you. Not just because you're onto something else now. That's a level of being nervous that's being overcome by you. You're not going to be afraid of this at some either future lifetime or this lifetime. If you become superior because of it, then you have to work that through your personality. Because inadvertently, as you become internally more able to handle these unusual things, or somewhat unusual, and they're taken away, something else comes where you're allowed to see some things because it's relevant, and others because it's not that relevant. Because if you had it all the time, you'd be starting to feel superior again. But you work that through a little bit. So more things will occur so you can work them through. Ultimately, you'll be watching energy flow through you specifically for the help of another in a certain place. And initially, you may even have some control over that. Ultimately, you don't want the control over it because you begin to realize that you don't know everything about that other individual or exactly where they need that help. So you begin to look at that higher state as having more awareness than you can have at this current stage. So you begin to learn how to pull back from your own self-interest. This is a very difficult pathway because your own self-interest is the thing that's gotten you to the point of being able to believe that somehow we're extra special because we can do these things or that thing and that thing. And you will be restrained from doing something when someone is engaging with you that sometimes has these things and you've lost them because now you're in a different space, you will be restrained from even giving them a hard time because that will hurt their relationship with their own self-interest. They're not ready for that yet. We all have this, and this is a process. Can't mention that word often enough. Process is so important and so vital and valuable. Ultimately, you literally don't even talk about what you can do because you're pulling away from learning how to do it automatically to show another that you can. You're acting as if you cannot. And that is so that you can engage with others wherever you happen to be, the supermarket, where it just doesn't matter, in a manner that might be helpful to someone in that supermarket without them knowing. That is a high level engagement so that your personality isn't elevated by you or anybody else, because that elevation stands in the way of being helpful in a subtler manner because your focus is on the personality being elevated. The same as when you grumble about something, when you do something that you believe is not the most perfect thing to do. You grumble about it. You can go grumbling on for years, but you stand in the way of letting that very thing go. The great wondrous metaphor, the story, the allegory that both Buddhists and Hindus use at will is the one where two spiritual people or two bodhisattvas are walking along. They come to a creek. The creek is quite broad, maybe 30, 40 feet. And they see two maidens, beautiful, beautiful girls on the other side, but they're all dolled up, obviously very palatial background. And so one of the gentlemen walk across and pick up one person, brings them across this river, creek, whatever you want to call it, and then goes back for the other. And of course, they're soaking wet, and they go back and deposit the other person on the other side as well. And they're very lovely. And then he walks across, and so does the other person. They walk along for a little while. And then the person who didn't help said, I don't know if you can be a bodhisattva or a spiritual person anymore, Swami. And the other person said, and why is that? He said, because you carried those people across and they were scantily clothed, and that has got you, really must pull you back into a more closer relationship with life. And he said, well, here's the dilemma. I let them go a long time ago on the other side of the river or creek, and you're still carrying them. I won't have any trouble. You may. These things are really metaphorically interesting, but really hard to understand. Of course, they're about maidens, right? They're not about how important you are and how your self-interest can carry you off into another world that you create and that you protect and you validate. This is the most natural thing in the world to do. It's neither good nor bad, right or wrong. It's just what we do. And we do that to survive in the manner that we have been trained to do so. And also at the same time, we have a sense of vulnerability. Every human does. And so our personality, as we see it and as we define it, whether it be true or not, is also a place where we go that we feel valued in it from our own perspective, and we protect. And we seldom are able to notice what we're doing and how we're doing at the time of doing. And if we could, seldom are we able to pull back from judging it or elevating it. There's a huge middle ground in this. And when something occurs, just pull away from it. Nobody gets things perfectly. And go on. Live life. Be as happy as you can. But I understand we want indicators about. And we want the ones we believe are truly indicators of spiritual growth. And we've made this up. We will continue to do this. There are many concerns about this because these things are honored, but they hold us in positions. And we are considered by others to be this way or that way. Even if that is so, do your best to let that go. Be okay with it and then let it go. At least notice that these things happen through your eyes the best you can. If you don't see them for 20 years, when you do, let go of the fact that you didn't see him for 20 years. Let it go. It's not relevant. Today is the first day of an engagement with something different. And do that as often as you possibly can. It will truly help you to go beyond where you are now, whatever that means. And if you journey beyond where you are now, it's a journey into the unknown, unless you take with you how others have engaged with that and how those who believe they know how that is, myself included, that belief may be based on experience, but also remember, no one gets the same identical experience. You grow through you. Learning about others and their growth allows you to at least say, if something happens similar to that, at least I know I'm okay. That's why it's important to read a whole bunch of books. Engage and try to understand personally, internally about you. So you can be okay with you. Not so you can judge you. So you can begin to respect your relationship with where you are and move forward a bit if you believe you need to do so. Some will see where they are and protect it to the nth degree. Not seeing, they can go beyond it because that's your baseline. No matter how much you see, you can't see it all. You will protect yourself. That's natural in our world. It's an expression through the coarseness of an engagement with these matter states. No negativity is involved with them. Except later, you see things slightly differently. Then do them differently. Best you can. I'm just going to check again to see if Betty wanted me to talk about anything else. Everyone feels like they're not moving fast enough, unless they're in a zone where they believe they're quite able. And that then sometimes will hold them into being like that zone, in that zone. Just remember, if you catch yourself in a zone like that, be okay, then try to pull back a bit. So Okay. She says, all I'm aware of is the energies coming in all the time and my protector always when I'm meditating. Yeah, that's a real important thing. That's probably the most important thing to be aware of and to learn how to trust. Hardly anybody trusts, and hardly anybody believes in themselves. Well, this is a little deeper. The self I'm talking about isn't your personality only, it's your relationship with the core essence of your being. It knows you better than you know you. Now, philosophically, you can talk about this, and you don't have to agree with it. But the more you talk to you in private, the more you'll see things. If you can allow yourself to broaden out and not just judge you. Judging is not helpful. Try to broaden out. See you as a being of consciousness, a being of energy, best you can, and live life. Learn what that means for you. The ultimate purpose is to have energy pass through you and you know it, and engage with others and help them to grow beyond where they can currently. Of course, that's from another perspective. No, it happens at all levels. It's very valuable. Okay, so one of the things you can do is notice the energy within and without, watch it move through, and watch it when it's inside you. You can spend some time on that. When in the world, recognize that no attention is brought to you, yet we still want to be recognized. If you walk through a whole bunch of people and no one notices exactly what's going on and no one notices you, that's a little disconcerting because we're brought up to have people notice us, at least from our perspective. It helps you to be okay. Reasserts the fact that you're all right. If you walk through a bunch of people and you believe nobody notices you, you're sadly mistaken. Everybody notices you while they're noticing themselves. For whatever reason, they will notice you, but you may think no one notices you. Then who is more right? Of course you are, because you're living in that world of no one notices you. But everyone notices you. The attention they pay to you is really based on, unfortunately, what you will allow them to do. Because you will not want them to pay close attention to you if you believe no one notices you. So you'll find that you will even restrict yourself from seeing when anyone notices you. I know I'm belaboring this point, but nonetheless, the same is true in the exact reverse. But look at all the middle ground. A very able being could walk into a crowd of 600 people and they train themselves not to be noticed. They bring their internal energy down to almost zero. They're meditating while walking. You can't tell. See, in their style of meditating, you don't need to be noticed. You don't need to act as if you're meditating. Don't need to say, "Hi, everybody, I'm meditating." You're not going to be able to notice me. because they're trying to get to the point where the personality state is so soft, it just allows them to perceive whatever goes on inside. And they're watching that energy come in and flow through various chakra levels at various depths for the purpose of enabling another to strengthen or broaden their capacity to have energy flow through them and be okay in that construct that we call personality, by just beginning to be okay within themselves, making some small internal adjustments so they can be helpful as well. That's an ultimate purpose. It devalues no other way of engaging or elevates no other way of engaging. Let's see. I made some other notes. The crown center includes all other centers as part of its development and our development individually. Personal coarser levels and ideas are supportive to what we believe to be a high spiritual level. In other words, we decide what's spiritual. But our decision-making process is theoretical, ideological primarily, and we extrapolate on other people's ideas that might have been involved and trying to help us in some way in some of the readings that we might be involved with. But extrapolation is extrapolation. Theoretical is theoretical. As you engage internally and externally with those other states, you perceive very much differently than how things were expressed by others. But there are similarities which become very important to you. And the number one similarity is the ability to engage with higher states through you for the purpose of helping others engage with higher states. That's a service-oriented healing in the inner depths of that individual structure. Same is true for them, same is true for us. Service is a vital way to be helpful to us and others. And remember, just try to remember all is energy, all is movement towards a conscious engagement with that highest level. You're not extra special for having it if all others have it too. If you lean towards helping others to have it as well, at some point in your spiritual development, you are softening down your self-importance because you know that they will be as able and more than you. That is a vital engagement with higher states. So, Betty, thank you for letting me use this question so that I can try and explain from this perspective what seems to make sense to a lot of folk who are engaging with energies that flow through them for the purpose of being helpful to others. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.